I didn't hear any noise. It was just like a whoosh. The wall fell out. The outside wall fell out, and some of the bricks fell in. So I was up to the waist in fallen bricks. My parents were mill workers and very, very poor and could ill afford to send their children to better education. My oldest sister, Edith, was the cleverest of us. She went to a secondary school. I came along and was eventually sent to a secondary school, which in fact was a grammar school. At the age of 21, that was the end of my apprenticeship with the largest business in Bradford, Yorkshire, which was Crofts Engineers, heavy engineers. And it was a steam world in those days, with steam engines in most big factories. I eventually called up on March the 15th, 1940, to the Ordnance Corps. I was cocky, I was red-haired, very, very red-haired. You there with the red hair, you're right, marker. That was my first greeting in the army. In those days, we were bombed regular every night at the same time. You could set your clock right from about 6 o'clock at night until about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. We were bombed continuously. And in fact, one fell on our guard room and killed about, I wasn't on duty that night, so it killed about 3 of them and injured about 8 or 10 of them. I had a narrow escape from a mine coming down. We were guarding one of the garages nearby, which we used as a store, opposite the Catford bus station. A mine came down and landed on a tram, which had been standing there for about a week. I'd just come in and I was taking my gas mask off. I was just pulling it off. And for some reason, I had my tin hat on. And I was taking it off over my tin hat when the explosion occurred. I didn't hear any noise. It was just like a whoosh. The wall fell out. The outside wall fell out. And some of the bricks fell in. So I was up to the waist in fallen bricks. Where the tram had been, it had gone. There was a massive crater there, about 50, 60 foot diameter. It was filling up with water. And a car ran right into the middle of it because it was blackout. A car ran right into the middle of it. It contained a flying officer from Biggin Hill and his girlfriend. And they went right into the water. So the car didn't sink. There wasn't enough water in it. It was probably about 6 feet. So they got out. But that was just part of my adventure in Catford, London. I would say, very unpopular with the officers in our group. There were 2 or 3 lieutenants, a captain, and a colonel in charge of us. I was totally individual and did exactly as I wanted. I was a guy who knew everything. So I was picked on by the officers. You can imagine when they got an order to send 20 men abroad. I think it's 24 men abroad. I was at the top of the list. With a big battleship, maybe at least probably 10 destroyers guarding us, probably 30 big boats there. We were in first-class cabins, which had been increased to 4 berths instead of 2 to get us all in. And there were 2,000 of us on that ship. It was a really good experience, and it took us 6 weeks, let me get it right, 16 weeks to get from Glasgow to Suez. The whole fleet nearly went over to America, touched the coast nearly, then came back to Freetown to avoid submarines, which it did. Occasionally they were there and near us, and the destroyers were whipping around all over the place, dropping mines, which guarded us. But after a very adventurous voyage, really, we arrived at Cape Town. We were only there for half a day, and then we moved off to round the corner to Durban, where we were greeted as saving heroes. The whole town turned out for us, and they were queuing up at the gates of the dock to take us away and give us a good time. And a girl with a big Chevrolet took us to, I think it was called the Valley of 1,000 Hills, and to an afternoon tea at a big hotel there. After leaving Durban, we went up the east coast of Africa, of course, to the Red Sea, and then to the Suez Canal. In Egypt, with the atmosphere, from time to time there would be a khamsin blowing. That was like a London fog, and it would last sometimes a day, sometimes 3 days. And vehicles like troop carriers, Bren gun carriers, all that sort of thing, tanks, were operating and running in those atmospheres. And of course, the air was a grinding paste, and it wore the engines away very quickly. And a truck engine used to do about 10,000 miles, not 100,000, what you would expect here. They did about 10,000. They were thoroughly worn out. So when we got the engines, they had to be completely remade. New camshafts, new bearings. So we were repairing engines to new condition. I was given a team of what I wanted. I had about 4 English and about 23 or so Egyptians who knew nothing about what we were doing, so I had to teach each one individually. At our best, we were doing 500 B-vehicle engines a week. By that I mean road vehicles, like Ford V8s, like Chevrolets, Bedfords. It was desert. Your nearest village was Tel el-Kebir. The base workshop was known as Tel el-Kebir. At its best, it had about 4,000 soldiers there. It had 2 cinemas in the end, a new Nafi cinema built, which was modern and everything working good. Beer wasn't available in Egypt at any time, really, until I got into the sergeant's mess. And we had about 1 bottle of Egyptian beer per week, per man. On the desert, bugs, ants, they jump onto your legs, onto your stockings. They come down your fly net because you all have the mosquito net. They would crawl onto your bed. At one time, so they said, there were 70% of those 4,000 men in hospital with malaria. That was at one time in the summer. There were so many in hospital, they couldn't accommodate them. They were outside in tents, bell tents. Once I got the workshop going, of course, I was rapidly promoted, as quick as the army would let them do it technically. So I was a lance corporal, a corporal, sergeant, and then staff sergeant. And I was staff sergeant for the rest of the war until I was demobbed. I'd switched over from being awkward squad to the best soldier I could be. So my boots were always shinier than the next guys. My war experiences made me. They made me from an unruly youth, motorcycling youth, who thought he knew most things in life, not realizing he knew very little. And of course I've learnt as I've gone through my life. The army taught me really the difference between right and wrong. It was a great school.